Classes in session.
Hey, and welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session. Guys, today you just get me. You get me and you get a lot of anger. Look, I want to come at things with sarcasm and wit and humor, but I'm at a point where there's certain states and certain issues that are going on where I can no longer find the light way to come at it. And I think it's about time we talked about it. Now, we're going to do Florida today. I know there's many states we could talk about, and I know for my American listeners, they're like, Joanna, why aren't you doing parts of Canada? Listen, I can go through a whole bunch of wrongdoings and own it for individual provinces and countries and states in the United States. But I feel as though there's a handful of states in the United States who it's at a tipping point. And Ron DeSantis in Florida as that governor is really leading the barrage of insanity. And he's done it increment by increment by increment. And I finally heard a list of it the other day. And the weight of all of these things together is just devastatingly insane. That's what it is. It's devastatingly insane. And look, as I'm talking to you right now, like I made this list and now I have to add one because I forgot, like, I can't even remember all of the ridiculous things this individual and his Republican contingent has done in Florida. So I'm going to try to take you through all of them. Heaven help me. And as we go through them, we're going to individually sort of dissect them and talk about their implications and talk about, and I think this is incredibly important, how we get around them, where the light is. Because if I don't talk about the light in this situation, if I don't talk about how we can combat and undermine and get around and eventually sort of liberate Floridians, people in the United States, people all across the world, because this is a sort of a wave of idiocy, then there's no point in me doing anything. I'm not just here to whine and complain and be angry, even though, unfortunately, I'm going to start this with a lot of anger. All right. Ron DeSantis, Florida. How long has he been in power? 37 years? 38? It's what it feels like, guys. It really, really feels like that because he's accomplished, from his perspective, and to be honest, from mine, one hell of a lot of disaster. So let's start with number one, shall we? Banning books. Banning books. The first, and again, all of this might not be chronological, to be honest, because he kind of goes back and forth, right? It's like he does a little bit here, a little bit there. But let's start with banning books, because I think banning courses and books and ideas is the first step towards everything else. I think vilifying intelligent either pieces of fiction or nonfiction that discuss and debate and sort of personify really important world issues, that's where you're going to start to sort of control the narrative. And everything has been done under this disaster of an individual. Everything has been done under the guise, under the illusion, under the pretense of what? Protecting kids. That's their mantra, right? That's on their poster, that's on their bumper sticker. We protect kids. And the banning books was really under that guise. So you would start with books that maybe in elementary and high school seemed a little outlandish, seemed a little like, oh my God, that it's really talking about that in this grade, or oh my goodness, that seems, and everybody's had that moment. I don't care where you sit on the political spectrum. There is a book that is in one school in one county in Florida where you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying that. That one seems weird. Now, would I ban them? No. Because what DeSantis has apparently done in his infinite ability to manipulate, which is significant. Let's not undermine that or undervalue that, because when we undervalue these kind of monsters, we really do give them a hell of a lot more power. When we start thinking about those individual books, and what he's done is he somehow just held up that book, that one book, and then the 15,000 other books as the problem, as the issue, as the crux of the argument, when in actuality, if anybody is a parent to a child in this day and age, or is a person in 2023, what they can get on the internet and what they can access on the internet is far more problematic, destructive, scary. And the reason why it's scary isn't just about the content, it's about the idea that they can do it without any adult or any person in their life knowing they've done it. Because what Ron DeSantis is doing in a very clear method is he's banning books, and he's making those subject matters increasingly taboo, and especially in households who think that talking about being gay or pronouns, or heaven forbid, talking about the history of slavery, or is actually a problem for their kids. So you understand, everybody that's backing DeSantis isn't having table room discussions about this stuff. They're saying, we don't talk about that in this house. And so what is it doing? Well, it's going to make every single kid who has access to the internet in any single way look it up. And look it up with no discussion. Look it up under the sort of weight of secrecy and this hidden, shameful idea that they now are going to look up this content, and they're not going to speak about it to adults. They can't speak about it in schools. Their teachers have been told they can't speak about it or they're going to get fired. Their parents tell them they can't speak about it, or whatever their punishment happens to be for whatever word has uttered their mouth. So they're going to do it on their own, guys. They're going to do it with no conversation. They're going to do it with no context. They're going to talk amongst themselves. You're going to have 10-year-olds educating each other on what they found on the internet last night and what video they watched. Are we insane? In this day and age, you start banning books, all you're doing is creating caveats and dark, dangerous rooms for people to take advantage of the well-being and mental health and protection of your kids. Let me go over a couple of books they banned in Florida. This might be, this list is hard because they ban them in different counties and then they let them back and then they ban them again. So, it's not like a statewide thing. Let's talk about a couple, shall we? Anne Frank. Oh, Ron. Anne Frank. For those who don't know what the book is about, it's the Diary of Anne Frank, a young girl who hid in an attic from the Nazi persecution, from her death, and wrote journals about it. Are you insane? This is what you're going to ban? Why are we banning this? And I always try to understand the why, right? Why? So what would his argument be? His argument would be it's too big of an issue, let's say. Too much of an issue for, let's assume this was banned from elementary schools. Okay. Is it too big for a 10-year-old who has a Holocaust surviving grandparent? Is it too big for them? Is it too big for a 14-year-old that has gone to the Holocaust Museum in New York City, or that has studied it because their family came from a part of China where it wasn't necessarily studied or brought up, and now wants to educate themselves fully and knows that this book is out there and they can't get it at the school? What message are you conveying? Let's go on. Maya Angelou, banned. The woman, if you've never read any Maya Angelou poetry, Why the Cage Bird Sings. Please go check her out. Go read it. Go be impressed by it. She talked about things like how ideals and moments of oppression don't get to define you, and how you can overcome, and how love will prevail, and how she's lived through what she's lived through, yet she lives with passion and forgiveness and empathy and power. This is what Ron wants to, eradicate. The Handmaid's Tale, well, we know why they want to ban that. It's a freaking they watched read The Handmaid's Tale and went, "Oh, this is an excellent idea. How do we enforce this? How do we ensure this, guys?" And I'm not being overly sarcastic or facetious. This is what's happening in the United States right now. Tiny little steps towards this. The ultimate controlling, nationalizing, limiting of women's body. I'm not even going to pretend that they're not using this as a how-to manual. So of course they want to ban that. I understand their motivations there, but this book's been around since 1980, what, 4? Ruby Bridges. You're going to ban the story of a 6-year-old little girl who had to walk into her school to learn how to read and write and go through classes in a fully integrated school surrounded by marshals protecting her from parents who were threatening her life. She was 6, Ron. How dare you keep that from other kids? She had to endure it, but grade 1s can't learn about it? Are you okay? You're obviously not okay, and it's quite embarrassing. You want to deny every single aspect of your history. You want to go back and whitewash the slates. The reality is, good luck. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's terrifying. But there's no way it's not 1933. And I use that year purposefully. It's not 1933. So if you want to put a pile of books on a pyre and set it ablaze while all of the uneducated, unaware, bigoted compatriots cheer you on, it's not going to work. Because all of those people, although they're going to be clearly on your side, the rest of the world, the rest of the country, the rest of your state, this new generation who has so little tolerance for your disgusting bigotry, well, they're just going to go to the internet and order it off Amazon. Ron. You set everything on fire. It's like the guys pouring out Bud Light. Go ahead, buy all the Bluest Eye from Toni Morrison, which, by the way, is an amazing read. He also wants to ban things like Harvey Milk, of course. How dare they have a gay mayor? It's ridiculous. What are we banning there? Well, we all know what he's banning there. He wants to ban the existence. He wants to eradicate the notoriety, the awareness, the fundamental rights of the entire LGBTQ plus community. There's no question about it. There's not even a conversation there. Of course he wants to, so he has to start with history. The Indian Removal Act, there was this amazing book talking about the Trail of Tears, banned. It's just history. You're just going to now section it off? Banned. We're not talking about it. Not a part of the curriculum. Like, that's him banning history. And I'm going to talk about particularly another issue surrounding Rosa Parks in a second, but him banning history is perhaps the clearest methodology he has here of how he's going to create a new narrative. V for Vendetta. First of all, it's now a graphic novel. But second of all, it's this movie. It's about revolution. It's about Guy Fawkes Day in England. It's about freedom. It's about all of these things. Of course he wants to ban that. I'm surprised, like, the French Revolution isn't off. Like, he should start banning that. The American Revolution, to be honest, Ron, you should consider not teaching that anymore, because it's going to give your students the illusion that the state of Florida supports the idea of independence, freedom, liberty, and justice for all. Are you insane? You can't support that. You're going to have to get rid of that, because what you're doing in this state doesn't correlate in the least with the principles of that particular freedom movement. By the way, one of the big issues that all those people left was because of religion. But go ahead, keep trying to enforce yours. I want to tell a little story about, or something I found out about Rosa Parks. So in the grade 1 curriculum in Florida, initially when they taught about Rosa Parks, they would teach about segregation and Jim Crow laws in the United States. They would teach about what that segregation was, white and black segregation, where white people could go and black people could go, where they would sit on the bus. And then they would tell the story about Rosa Parks and how it led to sort of this birth of an aspect of the revolution. Okay, I'm with you so far. But then they changed it. They thought, no, we don't really want to teach it that way anymore. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to ignore the segregation part. We're not going to teach them that the United States, for years after, let's be honest, what was it? 100 years or so after slavery was gone, we're going to not teach those kids that they implemented this horrific system of segregation, social, economic, educational, physical segregation of the black and white community in Florida. We don't want to teach them that. We teach them that, and all of a sudden they unfortunately know the real history of the United States. So they changed it. And they changed it to, we're not going to talk about segregation, but what we're going to talk about is Ruby Bridges, an African-American woman, sat in the wrong part of the bus. She was asked to leave. She didn't. It was a protest movement, and it led to civil rights. Okay, I don't know what you would have a civil rights movement against if you didn't first explain segregation and the horrific treatment of African Americans. But listen, maybe grade 1 doesn't, I have a bit of a problem with that, obviously, but the third one is my favorite. This is the current one, by the way. In the third iteration, invention of history, they talk about Rosa Parks sitting in the wrong part of the bus, and it started the idea of her rights and liberty, and they don't speak to her color at all. Her skin color isn't a part of the story anymore. Are you joking? When you say rewriting history, I don't understand how every single American doesn't stand up against this disgusting sort of negation of what's happened. You know, they're going to say, well, they're too young to learn. Well, were they too young to live it? And by the way, they're not too young to learn. I don't think you've ever really even spoken to how incredibly impressive those young kids are. But you know what I get by a lot of young kids when I teach anything surrounding discrimination? They look at me, and this is the part that is a very hard thing to teach. They look at me, and with genuine confusion and hurt in their eyes, they say, why would anybody do that? Why would anybody treat the indigenous people that way? Why would they steal their children? Why would they ever treat and segregate Black people that way? Why would they beat and abuse and imprison? How could they ever do that? How could they look at another person? Because that's what youth does, right? They look at things very, very clearly. And then as adults, we are left to explain this disgusting side of our histories. And that's a hard thing to explain. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not even saying I know the perfect way to do it, but I'll be damned if I'm going to lie about it. What a disaster that would be. So he starts with banning books. Then we move on to the Don't Say Gay bill. Now, I've had some fun in TikTok and like making fun of this whole Don't Say Gay bill because I can figure out a walk around. I'll tell you my walk around. in a second about how I would handle it if I were a teacher in Florida and I can keep my job for more than 37 seconds and even in order to do it, because I think my tattoos alone and my haircut would get me fired. But nonetheless, initially, the argument was this. Kids from K to 3 and then K to 8, because he extended it pretty quickly, teachers cannot discuss issues of, here we go, predominantly sexuality and gender. And what he was speaking to, obviously, covertly, not so covertly unless you're an absolute moron, is he was saying, listen, whatever the mainstream sexual identity is, i.e. heterosexuality, whatever the common pronouns are, he, her, him, she, as they were born, those are the things and those are the only ideologies we are going to perpetrate. We are going to perpetuate, sorry. That might have been a Freudian slip. That was actually right. And don't make no mistakes. Those are ideologies. The creation of pronoun is linguistic. It is linguistic in order to very clearly distinguish. And the point of distinguishing is to put expectations and a clear set of characteristics on people who are born boys and people who are born girls. So you can make a very quick assessment, a stereotypical one, a prejudicial one at best, of who you are talking to. It's the only reason we really need to know that. So when everybody ever says like it's an ideological, it's always ideological beliefs. They're always ideas that underpin our social organization, our political, our economic. Everything starts with an idea. And then he's extended it to don't say gay all the way to grade 12. These are 18-year-olds. Some 18-year-old kids who can't talk about this yet. By the way, I would love to know how the hell, if they do, sex education. How do you do health class down there without talking about sexuality? Well, let me tell you my walk around. I'd follow it to the letter, Ron. And to all my Floridian teachers out here, I don't necessarily advocate this because, and I can't make a joke about it, because I don't know to the length of violence you will face. Forget losing your job, okay? That's problem one. I don't know to the level of violence you will face in a state that has dehumanized a group of people to such a point where standing up for basic civil rights and human rights could invoke horrific violence against you. But we do know, if we studied history, and by the way, this is why they take out the history. If we studied history, we would know it does get violent. We would know that the Freedom Riders, when they got on that bus with white and African American civil rights leaders, and the white people got out first, they would face the beating of their life coming from white, bigoted, racist people who thought they didn't want their ideology challenged. Not in my town. So before I say this, I just want to preface by I want everybody in every place they're in to recognize their safety is first. Here's what I would do. No sexuality? Okay, Ron. So in every book, in every piece of literature, in every poem, in every conversation, in the hallways, you would no longer be allowed to talk about your mom and dad, read a book with a man and a woman in it who have a romantic relationship. We would have to ban any sort of conversations in the hallways by kids talking about having boyfriends and girlfriends. We would have to eliminate any and all conversations from teachers, especially talking about men and women. I don't know how we do sex ed. I'm assuming that course has to just, become, just not be on the books anymore. No sexuality. Ban it all. Great. That's a lot of black marker going into books. In fact, I don't even know if you can read a book anymore. Same is true for pronouns. You don't want pronouns? Okay. You don't want us to teach pronouns? Okay, Ron. No more he and she in a book. Him and her, all gone. Black eraser, black eraser, black eraser. You can use the person's name again and again and again and again. And by the way, he and him aren't the only pronouns, right? We all understand the list of pronouns. There's a bunch of them. We're going to have to get rid of them. Basically, what he's talking about is a complete eradication and manipulation and overhaul of the English language. I think it's a great idea, Ron. Kids would not be able to call themselves, would not be able to identify themselves as he or she. Their clothing style could no longer reflect gender norms, because if you're telling me I can't have an 8-year-old kid come into my classroom who happens to be a guy and wants to wear a dress and that's not acceptable, well, then nobody can. Because you didn't just say, because you have to be careful with your bill language, you didn't just say unorthodox pronouns, uncommon pronouns. You weren't clear enough, because if you were clear, it would have been struck down like a freaking lightning bolt from every major level of courts. And if it wasn't, it would be so embarrassingly theocratic. I don't even know what to do about it. But you can't come out and say that simply. So in my classroom, it would be eradicated. They'd call me Miss. Nope, can't do that. We're going to have to think you can call me Joanna Johnson. That's it. Because if we're getting rid of pronouns, and you have a problem with pronouns, Ron, they no longer have a place in school. It's a lot of textbooks you're going to have to rewrite, but Oh, this list is lofty. Number 3, the 6-week abortion ban. Of course he did. Heartbeat bill law. Of course, he is going to limit and control women's bodies. Of course, as soon as that law was overturned at a constitutional level, as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, 100% he was going to pass whatever he could possibly pass in order to ban that. This is the first step in a long step of things that are going to happen in this state, I can assure you. And whether or not you agree with abortion, you don't agree with abortion, that's your personal choice. What I promise you is that it will go down the way of nobody under any circumstances, under any situations. You have states now prosecuting 10-year-old little girls who have been sexually assaulted by family members who've gotten pregnant, and you have now forced them in some states to carry that baby to term. The level of disgust, I mean, it's on a level of epic I can't even begin to talk about. And I promise you, if Ron Desantis could get pregnant, you could get one at every convenience store right beside your Bud Light brand. Number 4, right now there are travel advisories to Florida. Can you imagine? As somebody who's obviously gay, the places that I go in this world, I have to be very aware of what their laws are, what the travel advisories are. I, honest to God, never thought that travel advisory could pertain to a state just south of my southern border. Why? Well, because DeSantis and his policies and his ideology, by the way, that's what he's presenting here. That's what he's created. That's what he's professing and instilling and indoctrinating. That heightened level of anger, that heightened level of dehumanization, that heightened level of disgust, and as Ron will so quickly sort of connect, he will connect protection of your kids and then the gay population, two things that don't go together. But nonetheless, he's going to do that in order to increase rage. And then, because that leads into number 5, he has just passed a no permit conceal and carry. My dad used to live in Florida, and I remember him telling me, Joanna, there are places in Florida you're just not going to drive through. That was his rule. You can borrow the car, you can go to Disney World, you can go to the beach, you can do whatever you want, but here's the areas. This is your driving. And I remember looking at him one time going, why am I driving an extra 15 minutes seemingly to get around, like to go somewhere? I go, why can't I just drive through here? He goes, because if you drive through here, there is too much uncertainty, too much poverty, too much crime, too much. He goes, take the extra 15 minutes. And he said, also, if somebody cuts you off, if somebody yells at you, if somebody you do not get in an altercation, you apologize, you go on with your day because you have no idea what they could possibly have in the glove compartment of the car. And that is somebody who lived there. And that is just like it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger considering this. Because now anybody, no permit, conceal and carry. It creates a powder keg of potential violence. Here's a pretty horrible one. Well, the Disney versus Desantis thing. Again, part of me laughs, Desantis, you're going to go up against the mouse? Good luck with that. In fact, I think it might be the mouse that destroys him in the end, which gives me great hope. Because Disney is not backing down. DeSantis does something stupid. Disney's already thought 10 steps ahead. There's that whole little chess game about him creating a board of governors in order to control Disney, but Disney already signed a pre-existing contract that supersedes the board of governors sort of a month before he did so, that lasts for generations to come. It makes me giggle to my soul. But the problem is with the kind of a narcissist, ideologically fervent individual like DeSantis, he just one-ups. He goes up and up and up. So now, he talks about putting a prison on right next to the happiest place on earth where all these children go. Is that how he protects kids? The jail next to the Disney World? And all of this is what? Because Disney had an African-American young, beautiful girl play the Little Mermaid? Does Ron know they're fictional? Is he confused? Is this because in that Buzz Lightyear movie, there was 2 moms who kissed on the cheek? This is it? This is the policy that you think is destroying Florida? This is the, I'm not even going to say the word, because the word, that 4-letter word, has been used to obfuscate and confuse and destroy the actual movement itself. You know how many kids have gay parents, Ron? This next one is a proposed bill, which this is where it gets. This is where people's lives are on the line. So there's a proposed bill that we all know he's going to sign, where doctors, medical professionals, and insurance providers can withhold service for moral, ethical, or religious reasons. And, according to this bill, they will be protected in court if any litigious individual wants to challenge them in a court of law. So you can have a doctor look at somebody and say, "You're gay, I'm not taking care of you. You're a single mother, I'm not servicing you. You're have an interracial marriage, no thank you." Because make no mistake, his intent here is to demean, is to demoralize, is to target 100% the gay, particularly, let's also be honest, the trans community, right? This is his way that he's going to block this. But make no mistake, guys, it's going to open the door for all sorts of bigotry. It's going to open the door for all sorts of disgusting. And that's really what Trump did, right? Trump opened the door. He didn't create it. It was there festering underneath. What Trump did is he highlighted it and he said, "Go ahead. Pour out your Bud Light. Make your opinions known, you morons." He did that. And as he did that, other Republicans who claim to hate Trump or not like Trump or run against Trump are then utilizing that hate, that division, because the easiest way for somebody to gain power is to have a scapegoat to point to and to target all of their anger, all of their lost hopes, lost dreams, lost jobs, lost family towards them. And if they can point it towards them, that's where the anger gets pointed towards, and I have a governor who's going to punish them. Cool. Remember last time when that happened? Right? Started around 1923. He took power in 33, killed 11 million people as scapegoats. That's what happened last time. And don't you dare tell me not to compare him to Desantis, because the comparisons are disgustingly similar. Now, my walk around for this would be great. So, can I ask how people vote? Oh, you voted for DeSantis? Cool, you're not welcome here. Because for all the doctors he thinks are going to be on his side, I bet you there's a bunch more doctors that would love to travel to Florida just to prove the opposite. But in this case, guys, and again, I'm getting petty, bitter. All that's going to lead to are people dying. Are people not getting medical care? Are people not getting insurance that they can afford and they can pay for? But they're going to be refused service because of who they are? Are we kidding? All right, number 7. Proposed Bill 999. This is one of my favorites. This is for college. So if you think the control of education stops in elementary and high school because they're impressionable minors, protect the kids. Hope he gets that tattooed on his face when he goes to jail. It's not. Because in college, they are adults. By 18 years old, you can go to war, you can vote, you can sign contracts, but Ron is telling them they can't think for themselves. So, proposed Bill 999 will eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion curriculums, including, wait for this, unproven theoretical or exploratory educational information. Did he just criminalize learning new things? That's what he just did. He just stipulated that universities cannot be a place where you explore new theories and ideas. Who's going to tell Sheldon Cooper he can't do theoretical physics anymore? Obviously, CRT off the table, women's studies off the table, gender studies off the table. But anything theoretical? Because that's what that means. Any new ideas. And by the way, any new ideas are off the table, but we've already eradicated and cut out all history. What the hell are we studying in college? Ron? Baseball like you did? And I know people are going to be like, Joanne, he went to Harvard. You know what that proves to me? Harvard has shit rotten standards. If I were Harvard, I'd be looking at taking away his degree, to be perfectly honest. All right. Obviously, banning drag queens is number 8. Banning drag queen story time. Heaven forbid kids like watching a theatrical interpretation of a kid's story by an amazing actress, and give me a break. And I'm not even going to talk about all the things we should ban, because if we're going to start banning this kind of stuff because of the sexualized nature, okay, so, and again, this is actually the height of stupidity. We got to shut down all those Hooters. Nobody under 21 is going into Hooters. We got to shut down the halftime show, football games, basketball games. We got to shut down, heaven help us, any beauty pageant, especially anybody under 18 participating in a beauty pageant. That's a lot of indoctrination and ideological conformity there, right? Are we shutting it all down, Ron? Because if your argument is clear, if it's about sexualization, then all of that needs to go. Right? So the way I would handle Ron, and this last one gets really disgusting, but the way I would handle Ron, instead of trying to go up against those particular things, I just extend them. The NFL, the NBA. I would then start saying, these individuals, according to state Florida policy, can no longer have those things in Florida. Watch the businesses leave in droves. And as soon as you start challenging and costing people, and this is the unfortunate reality, because nobody cares until it knocks at your door. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. Make no mistake. why he's going after the trans population, why he can still go after the LGBTQ plus population. He's going after them because they are a significantly small minority. They're the problem. They're the issue. We're going to go after them and all your problems will be solved. He's going to be long gone out of that office before that can be proven. And obviously disproven. But it needs to be a small population. He needs to think and he needs to manufacture ideas so they do not stand, allies do not stand with them. And the final one I just learned about. I don't even know what to do about this one, but the state, there's a proposed law that says the state can take effectively protective custody, emergency protective custody over children if any family member within their family believes that their parent, one or both, are thinking about getting their child, even their 17-year-old, gender-affirming care. And it doesn't specify gender-affirming care, by the way. So we could be talking about social gender-affirming care, changing their pronouns, letting them grow their hair, letting them wear what they want. He doesn't distinguish to medical gender-affirming care. So for all of those out there who are going to come at me with hormone blockers and chemical castration, all the Matt Walsh people, sit down. We're not even talking about that. Yes, I'll come for you later. Even worse than that, if they're giving it in any way, shape, or form, they can be taken away. And not just that kid, but all the siblings within that family. So they're basically going to step in your house, take away your kids because they believe that what you're doing is irrevocably harming your kids with your ideology. Cool. Can we do that for people that vote for Desantis too? Is this the insanity? The state of Florida hasn't properly, adequately ever funded child protective services, and you're just going to pile more stuff on them to do what? You're so concerned about kids. Why have you not tripled, quadrupled the funding to protect kids? Why have you not addressed the real horrific reality about the dangers and the violence that kids face actually come from inside the house? Your side loves to talk about the word grooming as though they understand what it's all about, when in actuality, 90% of all of it, all of that damage, all of that trauma, all of that shame comes from inside the house. Why are we not tackling that, Ron? Let it a little too close to friends? Is that your own, right? When you put an AK-15 in a 6-year-old's hand, that kid doesn't get taken away from their parent? If we're going to open the door, Ron, we're going to open it wide. So as I go through all of these things, and I mean, I know that's not a definitive list, heaven help me, but what I want us to understand is twofold. Number one, that happened piece by piece, moment by moment. It didn't happen all at once. It happened under the guise of protecting kids, the illusion, the lie, the pretense. He tells you everything in your life, in your world, is going to get better if we focus and target and eliminate, eradicate, and that word has been used, this particular population. And when we do so, everything's going to get better. I'm going to change history. I'm going to eliminate what we can talk about and how we can talk about it and who gets to talk about it. I am going to sever the education of these kids. I am going to eliminate academic discovery and influence and investigation. If you can't, honestly, if you can, or if you refuse to honestly be able to compare him to 1933 Germany, then obviously I'm going to have to send you one of the banned books so you can understand history, understand what you're up against, because I promise you, that's who he is. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I know this was a heavy topic. I appreciate you. I'd appreciate all the comments underneath the video. And if you're in Florida, I wish I could send you all of my strength, and whatever it is I can do, I will do it from here. I will see you guys next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat station. Dismissed.